Welcome to NewsBinge Weekend Review, covering the top stories from September 19th through September 21st, 2025. Your complete recap of world news, politics, finance, sports, and more, all in one place on the AI Podcasting Network.
You know, if your week felt like just a whirlwind of news bouncing between global finance shifts, wild sports finishes, and some really intense political moments, well, you're definitely not alone.
Yeah, it was a lot. We've waded through a pretty big stack of sources, everything from market reports, dense USCIS policy docs, game recaps, even transcripts covering some serious unrest. Information overload is, I think, an understatement.
Exactly. So our goal today for you is really to cut through that noise. We want to distill it all down, give you those key aha moments, not just what happened, but maybe why it matters, connecting these dots between, say, a Fed rate cut and a huge new visa fee. Context is everything right now.
Okay, absolutely. Let's dive in, maybe starting with the big economic picture. The U.S. Federal Reserve, they made their first short-term interest rate cut in quite a while, about 9 months, dropped the policy rate by 25 basis points. That's 0.25%.
Right, which wasn't entirely unexpected, but the reasoning behind it, that felt like a shift.
It really did.
Yeah.
They weren't just talking about inflation this time.
No, policymakers specifically pointed to a weakening labor market. They actually used phrases like job gains have slowed and noted that downside risks to employment have risen. It sounds like they're trying to get ahead of potential job losses.
That's the key takeaway, I think, that shift in focus. For months, it was all inflation, inflation, inflation. Now you see this rising concern about employment, maybe potential slowdown. It feels tactical.
And how did the market react? Well, Wall Street seemed to love it.
Oh yeah, big thumbs up. Major U.S. stock indexes shot up to new record highs.
NASDAQ, S&P 500.
Yep, and importantly, small cap stocks. The Russell 2000, they rallied hard too, like over 2%. That often signals broader optimism since those companies are really sensitive to borrowing costs.
So is this just a quick reaction, a bit of a sugar rush, or is there more to it?
Well, the Fed's own projections, their summary of economic projections, suggests maybe more is coming. Most of the policymakers seem to expect another 50 basis points, so 0.5%, in cuts by the end of 2025.
Okay, so the market might be seeing this first cut as just the beginning of a trend.
Exactly. Pricing in that future easing. This move kind of confirms that outlook for them.
All right, so the U.S. is easing. Now let's contrast that. How does this compare globally?
It's quite a difference in some places. The Bank of England, for example, they held their rates steady, kept them at 4%. They did slow down bond sales a bit, but fundamentally, they held firm. Not easing.
Held firm. And then there's Brazil.
Brazil is, the other extreme. They're keeping their main rate, the Selic rate, way up at 15.00%. 15%.
Wow. And the sources call that significantly contractionary. What does that actually mean for them, and why should we care?
It means they're slamming the brakes hard to fight inflation. High rates like that make borrowing incredibly expensive, so lending slows, investment often stalls. It can really slow down the economy.
Okay.
And why it matters to us? Well, with the U.S. easing rates while others stay high or tight, it makes the U.S. look even more attractive for global money-seeking stability and decent returns. It could pull more capital towards U.S. markets.
Okay, so we've got capital flow. Let's switch to the flow of talent. Because there was another massive policy earthquake this week with the H-1B visa program.
Oh, absolutely massive and immediate. This came from a proclamation signed just on September 19th. The big headline, the real shocker, is this mandatory $100,000 payment.
$100,000 just to file a petition?
Yep. For any new H-1B petition filed after midnight, basically September 21st, that includes the lottery for 2026 that's coming up.
Wow. I mean, that's an instant, incredibly high barrier. What's the thinking behind that, the long-term goal?
The stated goal is pretty clear. They want to raise the bar significantly for temporary foreign workers, make it about attracting only the absolute top tier.
So not just filling roles, but getting the best of the best.
Exactly. And longer term, the plan includes the Department of Labor raising the required wage levels and prevailing wages quite dramatically. And Homeland Security is supposed to create rules to prioritize the highest skilled, highest paid workers in that lottery system. It's designed to discourage companies from using it primarily for cheaper labor.
And while this huge policy shift was happening, we also saw some major moves in the tech world involving international players.
Right, almost in parallel. President Trump announced an agreement with China's President Xi regarding TikTok.
Yeah.
Basically, a deal was reached to avoid the looming ban, securing U.S. ownership.
Which involves some big U.S. tech companies stepping in.
Yeah, Oracle is right in the middle of it. They're reportedly talking about a massive, like $20 billion cloud computing deal with Meta, Facebook's parent company.
20 billion. Wow.
And Oracle is also tapped to handle the security side and essentially rebuild a U.S. version of TikTok's algorithm. So you see these tech giants becoming almost like instruments of national policy and security.
It really underscores how high the stakes are everywhere right now. Okay, speaking of high stakes and, frankly, unbelievable outcomes, let's shift from policy drama to gridiron drama. The Eagles game this week.
Yeah.
Just wow.
Unbelievable is definitely the word. Forget small percentage points. The Eagles were down 7-26, 19 points behind the Rams, deep into the third quarter.
It's usually game over in the NFL.
Usually. But they scored 26 straight points, unanswered, to win 33-26. That's just pure resilience.
But the finish, it was like something out of a movie script. You have to talk about Jordan Davis, the defensive tackle.
Oh, the final play. Rams lining up for what would have been the game-winning field goal, 44 yards out, time's expiring. Davis blocks it. He doesn't just block it, he scoops it up and runs it back for a touchdown as time expires. Game over. Eagles win.
The block heard around the world, seriously.
And that was the second blocked field goal in the game for the Eagles. Jalen Carter blocked one earlier.
So it wasn't just a fluke. That defensive line was just dominant when it mattered most.
Totally dominant. And offensively, you had A.J. Brown just going off, over 100 yards receiving, a touchdown, and he made 2 critical catches on 3rd and long on that final game-winning drive.
Setting up Devonta Smith for the touchdown catch on 4th and goal. Just clutch performance all around. High-stakes execution.
Absolutely. Okay, from one high-speed sport to another, Formula One is heading to Baku for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix.
Ah, the land of fire. Always chaotic.
Always. Very unpredictable track. For anyone playing F1 fantasy, Oscar Piastri is the name everyone's talking about.
He's been dominant, right?
Totally. Leading in fantasy points, highest average per race. He's the clear top pick, costing around $27 million in the game. But because Baku is so unpredictable, the smart fantasy play might be to mix things up with constructors, maybe pair McLaren with Ferrari to hedge your bets against the chaos.
Good tip. And sticking with endurance sports, the cross-country season also kicked off.
Yeah, we saw the first preseason Coros Mile Split 50 rankings drop for high school runners, both individuals and teams. Always exciting to see who the early contenders are.
And speaking of young athletes, there is some really inspiring news from the track.
Right, Cooper Lutkenhouse, a young runner, absolutely shattered the under-18 world record in the 800 meters. Ran an incredible 1.42.27.
Wow, that's flying. And it qualifies him for the World Championships.
It does. It's amazing stuff. And it kind of ties into some advice that pro runner Jacob Ingebrigtsen shared recently. He outlined 5 lessons for young athletes, focusing on things like belief in yourself, using data, learning from every race, and just relentless consistency.
Consistency seems like a theme, whether you're blocking kicks or running middle distance.
It really is.
Okay, now we need to pivot, unfortunately, to some of the week's much heavier, more tense events, where things felt like they were really escalating.
Yeah, this is tough stuff. We're talking about the fallout from Jimmy Kimmel's suspension. The really alarming development was the breaking news that shots were fired. Reports say at least 3 bullets into the ABC affiliate station in Sacramento.
During protests related to Kimmel's comments about Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin. That's terrifying.
It's a frightening escalation, absolutely. And it immediately spun into a wider debate about free speech, media pressure, government overreach.
Right. We saw Senator Ted Cruz actually break with President Trump on this. He criticized the FCC chairman for pressuring ABC, calling the tactics mafioso, basically saying the government shouldn't be strong-arming media outlets like that.
But then President Trump came out and said he supported the FCC chairman's actions.
Yeah.
So you see this deep division even within the same sort of political sphere about how to handle media, protest, and speech. It shows how incredibly polarized things are.
And adding another really disturbing layer to this was a new survey from Rutgers University. It highlighted something they called a growing assassination culture.
Yeah, that survey had some truly shocking findings. The one that really stood out, the headline number, was that 56%, more than half of people surveyed who identify as left of center, said they believe there could be some justification for killing President Donald Trump.
56%. That's hard to even process that number. It points to a level of polarization that's moved way beyond normal political disagreement.
It really does. It suggests, for some segment of the population, that political opposition has somehow morphed into justifying lethal violence, at least hypothetically. A really profound crisis indicator.
And this backdrop of sort of tension and confusion seemed to spill over into public health too, specifically around the COVID shot recommendations.
It did. The CDC's advisory panel had this really contentious vote about the shots. It ended in a 6-6 tie.
A tie. So what happens then? What's the recommendation?
Well, the result of the tie was basically a much weaker recommendation. Instead of advising it broadly for all adults, they landed on making vaccination an individual decision, something you discuss with your doctor.
A softer recommendation then.
Much softer. And the expectation is that this will likely lead to lower uptake overall. Plus, it's already creating confusion because there isn't strong, clear federal guidance. States are apparently starting to create their own differing guidelines, leading to what one source called a hodgepodge.
And adding to the complexity, this particular CDC panel had members appointed by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the health secretary, who's known for his vaccine skepticism.
Right, so that context is important. It feeds into the uncertainty and the mixed messages people are getting.
Okay, wow. We've bounced from global finance to visa walls, miracle plays, cultural clashes turning violent, public health confusion. Before we wrap this all up, maybe a quick local note, weather context.
Yeah, good point. As we hit the fall equinox, that was Monday, September 22nd, there's some weather to watch, particularly for listeners in Arkansas.
Okay.
An unsettled pattern is moving in. There's actually a weather impact alert for Tuesday and Wednesday, the 23rd and 24th. Doesn't look like a huge outbreak, but there's a risk of some severe storms, damaging winds, maybe some large hail are possible.
All right, something to keep an eye on. Is there any upside?
There is, actually. The system is expected to bring some much-needed rain, possibly multiple inches, which is great news given the increasing drought conditions and wildfire risk in the state lately. So hopefully some relief is on the way.
Okay, good. Some relief is welcome after covering all that intense news.
So if we try to pull back and see the big picture from this week, what's the common thread? I think it's about reaction. You see central banks reacting maybe preemptively to labor market data. You see policy reacting forcefully to demands around global labor. And you see the culture reacting, sometimes violently, to speech and political division. Every decision seems magnified right now.
That makes sense. And to maybe tie two of those threads together as a final thought for you, the listener, let's go back to that H-1B change. We heard the goal is to attract only the best of the best foreign talent, partly by imposing that huge $100,000 fee.
Right, a significant barrier to entry.
Okay, but at the same time, we're seeing reports like the one about Salesforce cutting thousands of support jobs, specifically mentioning replacing them with AI, with automation.
Yeah, that trend is definitely accelerating.
So here's the question to think about. Will this very restrictive, very expensive new H-1B policy actually push U.S. tech companies to double down on automation even faster to avoid that massive fee for human workers? Or will they just absorb the cost, proving that truly high-end, maybe irreplaceable human talent is still worth the price no matter how high?
Fascinating question. Will the policy accelerate AI adoption? Or will human ingenuity command that premium? Something we'll definitely need to keep tracking.
You've been listening to the NewsBinge Weekend Review for September 19th through September 21st, 2025, only on the AI Podcasting Network. Don't forget to subscribe and follow for more updates across our channels, bringing you news, entertainment, and insights powered by AI. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.